You know, you got to have a lot of guts to risk other people's lives the way I do. I mean, I was talking to Chuck, when I invited him, I had no idea that you could even do it. It was the exact same thing I went through with Bill. If you listen to the hepatitis B cure story, I didn't know you could do it, but I just said to myself, okay, I'm going to work, this better work, I'm going to work this out. What am I going to do? Let the guy die, So, up over he came, You see, when Chuck called me, in his voice, I heard the voices of other people who died. People who died of AIDS before I discovered you could cure anything. Before I ever cured my herpes, years before, in the 80s. Bob Zemsky. Boy, he was something. When he was going, he left all his money to medical research. Bob, And he was a pistol. I remember him. Man, we had with my success courses, we had a series of courses called the Life Games. And we had the students taught them. Some, they would elect who could teach the next one. People would stand up and, run for office, and they taught it on a volunteer basis. Like people teach the Cure Show on a volunteer basis. That's, usually 3 or 4 people show up to teach the Cure Show. But with this, this was a major commitment. Teaching the Life Game, I mean, you had to be like, there were meetings before and after and weeks of preparation and so on. And they taught it in triads. It was Bob and these 2 other people. And I remember, it was, Susan Crosby, who was a fashion model, she was really tall. And then there was this guy, I can't remember his name, he was a district attorney, and he was really tall. And Bob was short. And the 3 of them looked so cute on their, we had a poster with their picture on it for the, for the Life Game, sort of like an ad that we kept around the center in New York. And man, that thing sold out in like a week. You couldn't get into it anymore. People were just so excited about them teaching, and they had so much fun. I remember I talked to Bob a few days before he died, and he said to me, I'm still fighting. He said, I'm still fighting this. He said, after I die, what I've left to medical research will fight it. And I didn't say this to him. I guess maybe I should have. But I made up my mind that I would fight it, when he said that to me. And I just didn't know how, so I didn't do much for a long time. But anyway, there's Chuck on the phone, right? And I heard, see, when I was talking to Bob when he first told me, or maybe Stephen Amaral is a better example, or maybe, a while back, Franny was going through a trunk and she found a T-shirt by Michael Arado. What could get Franny to pay $200 for a T-shirt? He was good, His T-shirts were wonderful. What an artist he was. And he came to my house on Sugarloaf Key, back when I lived in the Keys in the 80s and 90s. I lived in the Florida Keys. And he came to my house, and we were sitting on the breakwater behind the house, looking out over this enormous bay. And he said to me, Michael said, I'm going to cure this. He said, I'm going to beat it. I go up and down. I can see it coming and going, and I know I can beat this. And I was listening to him, and I knew that he was going to die. I knew it wasn't going to happen. But when I was talking to Chuck, in addition to being frightened, I was wild with excitement. I just said, this time I win. This time he wins. This guy's going to live. And I knew that. I knew it. And that was a good feeling after this long succession of bad feelings, because I have not scratched the surface of telling you the names of the people, Thomas and Leo Brockenhare, the people whose names should be mentioned, but and probably who were on the quilt, But anyway, so he and I went out to shop. We went out to buy food for the weekend, Chuck and me. And we're in BJ's Price Club, and all of a sudden I got the idea, we're just wandering around pushing the grocery cart, let's start taking out the virus. I mean, what a place. The first time I ever took out the virus was in BJ's Price Club, right? And so, you take it out, you start generally with the lightest body. And then you work, from the lightest to the heaviest, which is the physical body, right? And Chuck, it didn't matter which one was the lightest body. It was probably the celestial. But Chuck says, all of a sudden he says, I'm getting sick. And he started to get dizzy and nauseated. He told me he was going to throw up, and my mind was screaming, you're harming him. What are you doing? Stop this. You're doing this wrong. You need to go back to the drawing board. More research, You're not ready. You're not ready for this. That's what the demonic voice always says, if your mind is telling you, you are not ready to do this. Not ready for the big time. And then I heard the voice. Remember what I was saying in lesson 1 about the angel pounding her fist? Hey you! Hey you! I'm over here! So, and the voice said, if you stop, the HIV wins. And so I said, okay, let's go ahead and let's do this. And we did. And he passed through it. The nauseated, dizzy, sick feeling. He sat down. We went off the main aisle, and he sat down. And I said, just sit down. And I figured, so he pukes. He didn't have anything to eat, so we were buying the food, okay? So he probably was not going to puke up that much. And he took the virus out of all the bodies. We sat in BJ's Price Club and took the virus. We're sitting there, and people are walking by. It wasn't a lot of people anyway, so it was fine, And then we had the rest of the weekend. He killed the virus, and of course it was back, a few hours later, and we killed it again. But it never came back in as many bodies. He had it in every body. every body he had. But I don't think he ever got it back in the karmic body again after that. So he was on his way. And then for the rest of the weekend, we did, other things, more advanced things. A lot of the things you do in lesson 2, we did. And then a lot of things that we did that became the things that are in lesson 2. Because back then, he was inventing the cure, this guy. He was in this. Chuck LaSpada invented the cure for HIV, in case you want to know, with me and him, we just sat down and figured it out, and did the next thing, and we interpreted the signals. We interpreted and responded to signals and saw what the next thing would be, to get a signal on. And we put one foot in front of the other. And became ready while we did it.